Well, I guess it was inevitable that some bad press would come the way of the Russian government during the Olympic Sochi Games, and we've got some footage to show you. Cossacks are what they are called. These are people that are in law enforcement. They're not exactly police, they're not exactly military, but they work with police and work in law enforcement, originally to protect the borders of Russia, but also to help police make arrests. Well, they helped with a little bit more than that. As you can see, they're actually flogging female protesters from a rock and roll Russian band called P-Riot. And this group has made headlines because they interrupted a church service and sang some pretty vulgar lyrics, an impromptu concert, they called it. And they sang some pretty vulgar lyrics about President Putin. They were arrested for disrupting the service. They were sentenced to 2 years in jail. That sentence was reduced, I think, to a couple months, and they were released. And they have gone back to protesting. And their protests got them beaten. They were arrested, or detained rather, and then released. Evidently, some items were missing from a local hotel, and there was the possibility that they were involved with theft of these items. It turns out that they weren't. But they were protesting, and they were rewarded for their expression of speech with a flogging. It makes me really glad to live in America, where we can have freedom of speech, freedom of association, where we can protest without the fear of police roughing us up, where we don't have our persons or our things seized without a proper warrant, where we're not spied on. No, wait a minute. When I was leading Operation Rescue, we had police brutalize people. I mean, literally broke limbs. One time I was detained, or ultimately arrested by the police. They came, carried me out of a crowd of people where we were peacefully protesting, put me face down in a puddle, including horse urine, bent my fingers as far back as my wrist. I thought they were going to break the bones. Just tormenting people, putting knuckles underneath ears. It's happened here in America. Carried by handcuffs, excruciating. But beyond that, we're watching our own government spy on us. Keep all of our emails, keep all of our texts, log all of our phone calls. In some ways, we can look at what the Russian Cossacks did to these people and be disturbed, maybe even appalled that peaceful protesters are being treated like this. It really is appalling. But when you look at what our own government is doing to us, it is perhaps far more insidious, because the dragnet is literally after all of us. And it's being done without public beatings. It's being done while we sleep. It's being done while we are numbed from our bread and our circuses. Clapper, the head of, if my memory is correct, the head of the NSA, he's the one who lied under oath to the Senate, where he said that the government was not collecting phone data. When Senator Wyden asked him that, and there have been people who have been saying he should be charged with perjury. Well, Dennis Clapper had this to say. He said, he did an interview with the Daily Beast, and he said, "I don't think it would be any greater concern to most Americans than fingerprints." He's trying to justify what the government did without telling us, okay? Literally, most members of Congress didn't even know that the government was spying on all Americans. So Clapper said, "I don't think it would have be any great concern to most Americans than fingerprints." Well, people kind of accept that because they know about it. But had we been transparent about it and say, here's one more thing we have to do as citizens for the common good, just like we have to go to airports 2 hours early and take our shoes off, all the other things we do for the common good, well, this is one more thing. Mr. Clapper, I disagree. We go through airport security because we're going to get in a flying tube, and people have taken bombs on planes before, right? I get that. And the intrusion of these searches and how demeaning they are, that is still hotly debated, and I would side with civil libertarians. But it's one thing where you have a group of people in a potential flying bomb, all right? It's something completely different when you are spying on every American who has done nothing wrong, who is not connected to any criminal activity, and then you say it's for the common good? No. This is about Big Brother. This is about oppressive government. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at two former officials and look at their reaction. One a congressman, one a former congressman, one a former governor. What do they know that we don't know? That they're going off the grid.